Hi, Owen. My name is Ben, and I live in New York. And in a recent video, you mentioned that you don't believe Jesus is a real person. And I'm a huge fan of your podcast, by the way. But I feel that there is evidence that Jesus was a real person, whether or not he uh, was exactly who he said he was or who other people said he was, I think remains to be seen. But I wondered if you could dive a little more into whether or not you believe that he was an actual historical figure and just some of the questions surrounding that. I think that would be interesting to hear you talk about. Thanks.
Interesting question. I'll tell you why I don't know that Jesus was a real historical figure. It's possible he was. I'm not saying that he was not. I'm saying I don't know for sure. And the reason that I have suspicions in the first place is because any extra biblical accounts of Jesus, like any mentions of Jesus from historians at that time, many of them were forgeries, it turns out. They were forged after the fact, like way later, first of all. And second, there were historians, like well known historians, in those areas at that time who have no record of what Jesus said was taking place in the Bible. And third, if you go through the Bible and look at the stories, there are very detailed descriptions of what the Jewish Messiah was supposed to be and where he's supposed to be from and all this other stuff, right? It's not just a guy riding into town on an ass. He had to be born in Bethlehem, for example. Well, you have this guy from Nazareth, and they believed that he was the Messiah. So how do you come up with a story to make this guy from Nazareth be born in Bethlehem? You make up a census. You come up with a reason why this guy's parents were in Bethlehem when he was born. They claimed that Caesar called everybody back for a census. Has that ever happened in the history of ever? Like, do you know where your family from 1,000 years ago was from? I sure as fuck don't. I don't know where my family was 1,000 years ago. I barely know 2 generations back. How the fuck, before computers and before widespread written records like that, how would these people have even known where they were supposed to go to take a census? And why would they go take a census out of the city that they're in the first place? There's no record of this census ever happening. The Bible writers had to come up with a reason why Jesus' parents were going to be in Bethlehem when he was born, basically. He had to be there, to be born there, to have been the Messiah. It had to all fall into this nice little groove. And they came up with reasons that are completely nonsensical, not backed up by history or historians from the era. It just seems to me like the Bible writers were trying to force this person to fit the mold. Maybe that means he was a real person and they were trying to retroactively make his life fit when it just didn't. But to me, there's so little evidence that he was real in the first place, let alone the events of his life being real, that I just reject it. If somebody gives me solid evidence, like real hard evidence that he was real, I'll accept it, but I haven't seen that so far. Anyway, that's my reasoning. Maybe he was. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
Hey, Owen, this is Ed out of Texas. Just a couple of things here. One, I really appreciate your perspective on things and where you come from. Two, I really enjoy the artwork that displays on your channel every time I see it. But here's my question. If there is a separation of church and state, why hasn't the state come after these churches that are clearly becoming a political activist group in regards to the society that we currently live in? My understanding, there used to be a no-no, at least in the church that I grew up in, as far as preaching politics to the congregation. So, in short, go after them and have them pay taxes for becoming not really religious, but more on the political side of religion. Anyway, my best to you, and I hope I get an answer. Bye.
I appreciate that. I would love to see that happen more often. People, the IRS going after the tax-exempt status of churches. Unfortunately, the thing that prevents churches from talking about politics is very specific, and churches have adeptly avoided breaking those laws for the most part. And when they do break those laws, the IRS just kind of looks the other way, basically. They can talk about politics. They can talk about being pro-life or, anti-drug or anti-tax or whatever else. They can talk about all of those subjects freely. That's not against the rules. I think what's specifically against the rules is endorsing specific political candidates leading up to their political campaigns. I don't think they're allowed to do that. And what's his name? Robert Jeffress actually got in trouble for that a while back. He was at the pulpit and talking about Mike Pence running for 2024 and saying that after Trump runs again in 2020 and wins, hopefully Mike Pence will run and he'll have the endorsement of the church or something like that. And he actually did get in some shit for saying that. He didn't have his tax-exempt status removed. That's kind of a scorched earth type of situation. But he can be fined for it at the very least and investigated. And that is what happened. Unfortunately, our laws are not strict enough to prevent them from getting involved in politics as much as they want to, basically. I would like the laws to be more strict to prevent them from basically creating a theocracy out of the Republican Party. Like, the Republican Party at this point is steered by the evangelical voting bloc, and that's exactly what they wanted. Now they can just point their voters in the right direction, Republicans. They don't even have to endorse a specific candidate now. They can just say, vote for the pro-life candidate. Because saying pro-life isn't against the rules. And their people do. They vote for him every time. So, anyways, that's the problem. They've found a loophole, and they have taken advantage of that loophole to a disgusting degree.
Hi, Owen. My name is Vika, and I'm from New England. I am a educator, and I absolutely love your show. It's actually given me quite a bit of feedback and trying to improve my mind, so on and so forth. But anyway, I have a quick question for you. I just want to see how you feel about this. I am an educator, and I have a student who repeats everything that their mother says, which is, oh, the earth is flat, and all these conspiracies that you talk about on your show. They oftentimes, I've gotten confronted by the mother a few times. I've also gotten confronted by the student a few times where they feel that the vaccine is not a good thing and so on and so forth. How would you feel, or how should a teacher or a educator of any sort be able to confront this type of behavior? Thank you so much. Have a good day.
I appreciate that. That is a difficult situation when a student is combative and completely shut down the moment that you bring up any specific subject. And I would be willing to bet that sometimes you don't even know what subject is going to set them off. It's something that's loosely related to what they believe, and then they go down that weird path anyways. I would suggest asking non-confrontational questions. Ask them to expand upon their beliefs. Tell me what you believe and why you believe it. And when they explain it, just poke little holes in it if you can. Not in an attacking way, just in an inquisitive way, I guess you could say. You want to know more about it. And find the flaws and ask them about them. Tell them if they're right, you want to be right too. And try to draw it out of them and keep their guard down. Because the moment their guard goes up, the conversation's over and you're not going to be able to make any more progress. Just try to keep their guard down and keep them in a trusting, happy attitude, or they're going to be combative and they're going to try to start debating you, and the conversation isn't going anywhere from that point. Hopefully things work out, and hopefully you can move this person forward. But just be aware that you can't save everybody.